to Collective Intelligence Summit. It's really an honor and a privilege to have you all here in that room. I feel really great today to be capable of sharing our insights and our projections for the next decade with you. It's not the first time that we conduct summits like this. The first one was in 1997, and we took it rather literally. So we climbed up the summit of a mountain with a group like yours through the rocks, and then we've had a kind of rock avalanche. Matthias was almost killed, but we survived. So we took it literally, and now we take it more metaphorically to have a mental summit, to think about things which hopefully are unthinkable. And this is also part of the 1492 philosophy, to think ahead or to go beyond what's existing, to grasp and understand the next big thing coming. Because all those people who have kind of a sense for the future and the courage to create it, they will have it, and all others follow, and with all the disadvantages of following eroding margins or exit in the market, and. So we will go through that summit. I will not start with epic introductions, which is usually my way to do it. I was briefed from my colleagues to not do so, and as we are together, hopefully collectively intelligent, I follow your instructions, Max, to be brief. So thanks a lot to join us. We have done that in collaboration with TCI, partners of us, and with Thomas Fischer on his side. And so it's not just the 1492 summit, it's an ecosystem summit, if you will so. Brief introduction of what we do. We stand for this kind of courage to go beyond the horizon or beyond existing stuff, because believe it or not, your fantasy has kind of limits. You cannot think into the future without limits. There's kind of the earth band, and then your horizon stops what you think is possible, what you think is achievable. And today, of course, we want to go beyond that horizon. What we do is here, of course, we have the traditional consulting. This is where we started. In the past, we behaved rather like a think tank. In practical terms, that meant if a project was innovative and kind of exciting, everybody was engaging. If it came down to routines, then we were kind of not so motivated anymore, to tell it like this. So the consulting had a strong arm into innovation, and we will have this summit in 4 steps. Of course, the opportunity to share that with you. So we turned the think tank into a rather different business model. So at the moment, in 2016, we started a business school because we understood all what we do depends on the leaders. If they don't grasp and comprehend what we want, then the whole thing slows down. Oh, thank you very much. I will come to the introduction of you so that you can network even better. But great that you made it. You just landed from? San Diego, beautiful city. So the business school, and of course the management consultant, through the collaboration of IPM, we are achieving to be an asset manager, and we have, thanks to you and your idea of venture to value, opening a new asset class more later. And of course all that is driven by technology, because we think that makes the difference. If you do it analog, out of your stomach, it's not bad, but it's kind of old school. The whole summit will be introducing kind of power steering to your businesses and leadership, so that you have an easier job to accomplish what you want, but driven actually basically by technology. We're tool makers, and I'm quoting a former boss of Maximilian. I say, well, if you take the energy consumption of animals from a mile, then the condor, the bird, is really efficient. Although he is outperformed by every average bicycle rider times 10. So if you ride a bicycle, you have even less energy consumption than flying birds. So we outperformed nature and biology, and some of it is still in 1492, which is passing through Maximilian into 1492. So summing it up, it's actually the idea to go beyond the horizon. what many people don't grasp is this: the Earth is moving. There are still flat Earth believers, but we understand that the Earth moves. And if you're there, your horizon somehow ends somewhere, and the next big thing is beyond your comprehension. And the summit of today looks into that in more detail. And this is not just esoteric stuff. We really had, by accident, achieved such a result in Maximilian's former organization. We did what we did with all the motivation and with all the tools we had, and all of a sudden the system accelerated by 100% performance per year, or by 3 billion outperformance, which nobody even wanted. The controllers were sitting there and said, well, the budget is not gone. And we didn't know what happened either in 2004 to 2008. And slowly, and this is the opportunity for us to also reflect, slowly we understand the dynamics and the tools, how to repeat that and how to predict it. And this is not just a story. At least the company has been grateful enough to say, okay, you do not get a share of the 3 billion for your consulting, but at least we let you publish it, and it was published as a best practice, just to prove that this is not something which kind of is the anecdotes of Michael, Katja, Hardy, and Maximilian, and David. So it's really something you can see tangible in the effect of your EBIT. So for our business model, it's not selling days. Our business model is contributing to the effects on the EBIT, which is a different approach. And the why of the summit, why should we think beyond the horizon? What is the benefit for it? I want to go to the chapter 1 and share it with a personal story for me. My parents, or my father explicitly, has been so ambitious that he taught me how to ski before I was able to walk. He put me in ski boots at the age of a couple of months because he claimed that the boots gave me so much stability, you don't need to walk. So the first thing I learned was skiing, and I really like it today, and I made it into several competitions. But what is stunning, and this is also the why we do the summit, actually it's easy to explain with kind of a dramatic example. So please enjoy the clip.
Achtung jetzt, jetzt wird es interessant. Achtung, Anfahrt auf die Hausbergkante.
Kurz nachgeben, wir müssen das sehen. Ganz kurz nachgegeben, wie tut er jetzt?
Hier ist reichlich gestürzt. 24.
Und Alex im Flecker! Ibelachisch! Mario, das war ein grausiger Trick. Mario! Schau dir das an, ja, gibt's das? Ja, gibt's das?
Ja, was ist denn dort?
Boah.
Ja, darf man dort weiterfahren? Darf man dort weiterfahren oder muss man sich das genau anschauen? Das gibt's doch gar nicht.
Das muss die Jury entscheiden jetzt. Ja, bist du blöd, hat sie ihn jetzt da ausgeklebt.
Gestern hat sie ihn in der alpinen Kombination beim Slalom geworfen. Es hat geheißen, Gesäßmuskel ein bisschen weh. Aber er fährt natürlich heute hier. Und das ist ja, da kann er gar nichts dafür dort.
Du, den hat es 1,5 Mal um die eigene Achse getragen, gell? Das ist mit so viel
Die kommen ja gar nicht nach mit Leute versorgen dort. Also ich weiß nicht.
Im Prinzip war es der gleiche Sturz wie vom Hannes Reichelt vorher. Allerdings hat der Axel eine etwas breitere Skistellung gehabt und dadurch ist noch mehr, wie soll ich sagen, Kraft frei geworden in dem Moment, wo es ihn in diese Kompression hineindrückt.
Nein, das darf nicht sein. Das darf nicht sein, dass sich der da jetzt wehtut. Das darf einfach nicht sein. Und Armin, da müssen wir drüber reden. Das gibt's ja nicht. Du kannst nicht einfach weitermachen jetzt. Da kannst du nicht einfach weitermachen.
Aber Axel steht. Gott sei Dank steht er.
Who of you is a skier, even if it's an average skill? So for you, this is a dramatic scene. It was Kitzbühel race a couple of years ago where 7 out of the top 10 had his experience. This was Axel Swindal, one of the most competent and skier with divine skills. How can that be that he cannot make it after the Mauswelle? You know where it is. What happened there with an expert training and dedicating all his life into that? Guess what was the reason? No? Actually not ice. Actually there's no sun, so you do not see the little bumps, and at his speed of, let's say, 115 kilometers per hour or 30 meters per second, a tenth of a second, not knowing what's coming because he couldn't see it because the sun was blocked. So then you don't see the casts in the race. Was enough. A tenth of a second, 3 meters before what happened, he would have had the chance to somehow strengthen his muscles a little more and make it. But he didn't see it. So he was incapable of anticipating the next 3 meters, and that the disaster was, he was not on the winning protest. He was kind of, he survived, he was not in hospital, and 7 out of the 10 top racers had the same kind of failure, even being the top of the world. Of course, they are pushing the limit, and there's not a lot of margin for error, what you can see. And the funny thing is, or the sad thing is, we have the same experience in business. If you do not anticipate what's coming, what happens is that in the moment where you need it, the whole organization goes in a shock. You cannot anticipate smoothly what's coming, and you have the same reaction. And we're witnesses of that on large scale. We have seen Nokia collapse in front of our eyes because in the moment where they needed it, they had kind of no anticipation, no preparation, no scenario, no culture in place to somehow digest the change, and then they exited the market. Nokia, and Max comes to that. And so this is the downside of it. And if you and your organization don't anticipate strategically what's coming, even in scenarios, then you have stress, and then you make decisions not based on facts, but based on fear. And fear is a very sad consultant. And so let's use the summit, and it's the why, to look into the future, although it's a projection. Nobody knows exactly what will happen the next decade, but we can at least emotionally prepare us and to look a little bit beyond the horizon. Some other companies were not bad. I don't use the Apple example, but of course, Tesla, Airbnb, they somehow not even anticipate, and of course IBM, they don't anticipate stuff. They really make it. So it's also, the summit is not there to anticipate stuff and follow. The question would be really, the king's way or queen's way would be, how can we make things happen to the benefit of our customers and ourselves and the entire ecosystem by anticipating somehow what will happen in the future. And this, of course, is an image which is quite old, the digital tsunami. I think it is already gone. It went. The figures are amazing. So the point proven is all of you are kind of in the Swindle situation with a lot of speed into a bumpy slope in competition and in comparison to Swindle and the ski races with changing rules. In sports, the easy thing is that the rules remain the same. For you, you can change the rules. Then you're a game changer, and competition changing the rules from Amazon and Apple Pay, chewing a lot of the margins away from payment, and so we are disrupting. So actually we have an even more difficult job than Swindle. And of course, it's exponential. What you can see here, how long it took to get 100 million users, 75 years for the telephone, 16 years for the phone, 7 years for the internet, Facebook 4 years, 2 years, 3 years, and even one more. If you have kids, the Pokemon Go app, it went around the world in 5 days. It's not really linear that people pass on that. It's kind of a phenomenon we don't comprehend. It's not something which we are used to. We have new patterns, and this makes sense to really go for that in a different approach, to rather anticipate what is coming. The same figures there. And my question to you, what was the most successful app in 2006? It's not long ago. 2006. You all have been already in business. What was the most successful app? They didn't exist. We didn't have it. So what is in our minds, we adapt so fast that we think it was always there. No, it wasn't. It didn't exist. in 2006, we've been in Nokia, and we were in really the front line to this gentleman, and this is Oli-Pekka Kalasubo. Mika, you know him in person. He retired in Maximilian. 1 billion customers. Can anyone catch the cell phone king? And that, of course, was 2006. And Max will elaborate in the afternoon about what's really the difference in the business model, which we can learn and anticipate. And things go really fast and exponential. Who has some VHS tapes at home? Really? Oh, you're sentimental people. I had 8 bags with four children, but I have 8 bags put to the trash, and now we have Spotify, Netflix, and Apple TV, and that's it. It's of course more convenient. Did you fly with a ticket like that? Yeah? Who used a paper map to come here? Not today. Of course, and there's something going on which is really amazing. So even without infrastructure investment, many other business models take off exponentially, and this is, of course, amazing. If you look to the figures, these guys, and Scott Galloway, a New Yorker professor, argues a lot about the downside of it, but the upside is they have exponential growth. They made it with half the people of Vienna to the 5th greatest economy in the world, with 900 people. How can that be? Nobody of us, nobody in a business school ever comprehended the dynamics, because we still think in kind of industrial terms. We need that amount of people to achieve that amount of revenue and profits. And this is kind of breaking up that pattern that we should be considering how that works. And there's hope, because the GDP is still in growth. And the interesting stuff over there, it's from the World Bank. So the GDP will double the next, estimates mean the next 20 years. So the cake is growing. So there's more to come, even though the population flattens out. So that means the gap between more and more GDP and productivity and business with less people, where does it come from? And of course, Rifkin at least tries to have an answer and say, well, it comes from the platform of technology. That means energy, logistics, and communication will be the foundation of business. When we are riding horses and have the steam engine and telegraphs, there are certain industries building on that platform. If it hops into renewable energy, into machine-to-machine communication, AI-driven, and of course autonomous driving, then we don't really know what that will mean. And we're in good company, because Daimler executives don't know either. They're guessing, and we're on the forefront. It's a client of us. We're still striving for what does it mean in terms of financial planning and really the down-to-earth stuff. We know it will go there. We don't really know where it is. And this is a nice chart to underline the exponential growth. Do you know Ant Financials? I didn't know until yesterday, because David is in the age who comprehends that. I'm another generation. I didn't know that there. They started 2014, and it's kind of not a unicorn, it's a 10x unicorn with a market cap of 150 billion Chinese. The same for ByteDance. They started 2017, that means 2 years ago, and leaped forward exponentially. How can that be? How do people collectively believe that this creates so much value? And so we are not speaking about unicorns anymore. In that realm, the top 10 are really achieving a kind of market cap which is unprecedented. And of course, one of the answers is that the business model all over the place is an evolution. I'm proud to share this is Daimler's idea how to cope with it. From a car manufacturer, let's produce what they call the heilige Blechle, so the holy iron bit, and they wash it every weekend and polish it. I do the same, I confess. But nevertheless, they made more money with being an asset provider. And of course, with fleet operation, of course, with platforms like MyTaxi, it's now a joint venture with BMW, but aggregated and really going into mobility service. Their vision is being a tech company, taking over your lifetime mobility issues. That's their kind of dream. And we can test our ability to anticipate the future, because this would be the skill which I would love to have. I'm trying, I'm working. 1492 is working on that. But let's test it. So how good are you in anticipating the future, looking beyond the horizon? If you know the example, because you have participated in one of our workshops or so, please don't spoil it for your colleagues. If you know it, just raise your hand. So pattern number 1 is the starting point, and then the patterns evolve in 8 steps. And you can test your brain functionalities, how good you are in anticipating the future to come. Who already knows what it will be in 2030? It's kind of the shape of my hair. I hope you recognize it. Yeah, it's a man's face, for those who didn't get it. And what will it be after 8 steps? Anybody already anticipating? You know it? Okay, this is cheating. You're disqualified in sports. But you're welcome then, spreading collective intelligence, your insights, then we are faster as a group. Okay, second. Raise your arm if you think you know it. Well, this is the good reason that you're here. It actually morphs into a young lady looking away from you. Did you get it now? Okay. So when did you somehow have guesses what it will be? 23, 25. The research is a real empiric research from a colleague and friend of mine, Müller-Stevens from St. Gallen University. He had people doing this and other stuff, looking to their eyes, having cameras to their eyes and pupils to see what they do. And it's very interesting. His finding was, if people compare what they see with the past, they have less likelihood to understand what's coming. So if you're very past-orientated, even in that tiny experiments of seconds, you decrease your chances. If you just look to what you have and try to make an open mind about the future, the statistics say it's more likely to anticipate. Of course, the more conservative you are, the more you hate innovation. If you are in Slovakia and everything is booming, then you don't give a damn on the past. You look into the future, and this is, of course, a benefit. It has strategic consequences, because in the beginning you could be using the time for being a game changer. If it's on the lower end, then all others have already done. N26 started with online opening bank accounts, and then Raiffeisen is following. Yeah, of course, then you're using this first mover advantage. And the problem is a lot of changes ahead, it's clear. Whether it's digitalization, globalization, demographics, and all that, we have to cope with the Ketchup effect. And I think this is everybody's experience. You shake the bottle, and nothing comes. You do it even more intensively, and all of a sudden you have all the ketchup on your plate. And this is the Swindoll effect in a daily experience. We need somehow to find a way to cope with that. When is the right time to be ready, and to really be right on the other hand? So the timing aspect to have that is important, and also to be right, otherwise you do the wrong thing, and then it's not really helping. So this is the why about the summit. So if we look into the future, we could anticipate stuff. We have less stress and even more time to prepare. So what you will experience here could be translated in dramatic leaps forward in the performance of your company and your own well-being. Having less stress is at least my objective at home or in business, being more mindful, being more relaxed, and to see it coming helps. I hate the Swindoll example, and it's really painful to be so skilled and not see it coming. And this is, I think, the intro and the context. So we will explore 4 different sessions, starting with how can we shake up the culture, because it's also always a cultural issue, a collective issue, about collective beliefs, about when is what coming. We will have the algorithmic decision-making session. So how can we get away from just making our stomach or politics or biased decisions? What's the single point of fact translated into algorithm to have this power steering for your car in business? In the afternoon, Maximilian will share with you in depth the difference of the data-driven business model. He will argue that data is not the new oil. It's even something in more detail which you should focus on, together, of course, with our partner Franz Amesberger and his colleagues and guest speakers. He will go into cases and examples. We will, after that, look into what we are capable of doing and look into the skills of groups and in the collective intelligence which you could apply in your meetings, even on your relationship, because whether you and your partner are collectively intelligent or not would make a difference. And then we have Sandy, not Sandy Pentland, Dean Radin, to really translate it into leadership. What kind of leadership should we perform in the future? And I think it's mind-blowing. So for me, I'm looking forward to it. I have so much fun to do that you also have to participate me. It's the other way around. So introduction, I'm really proud to have, you're the first on the list, so to have you here, Peter and Max from Erste Group. This is just a little support for the networking. If you know who is who a little bit, then it's easier to approach people. We have Arno Wohlvater. He's on the road. He was a former bicycle rider. Now he has a car, but he's still late. He will come. And he's CEO from Trenkwalder Group, starting 1st of October. He was a former manager from Babak BSK and pushed them into a kind of good performance in retail. So it's great for all the bankers. Of course, Michi Büttner, who is on the 4092 team, former CEO from Accenture. And I'm really proud to have you here with Barbara coming from Wienerberger. Then we have Melita Watzak from ÖSMV, somewhere sitting in the room. Very honored to have Chad Flo and Sonia here, directly coming from Dubai, and also supporting the TVM 4092 team on the asset management. Of course, Werner Benninger, you will have a part in the afternoon to show really the depth of what is a data-driven model in communications, which I thought didn't exist, but you're the game changer in that regard. Harald Pfannhauser from the media is amongst us. Mika Tulonen, it's really a pleasure having you here from Finland. He's from the Finnish Raiffeisen equivalent, OP, and he has a lot of experience in the other examples we already shared. I don't repeat it too often, otherwise we have their fate. Ulf Meiners, I'm so proud that you're here. Michael Wagentorf apologizes, he's the CEO of ORS. He will come tomorrow. Irmgard, it's a privilege to have you here. Former top executive from the Grana Group. You made really the first attempt to transform the culture, and it's still working. And we keep it still working. Alex, the renegade and game changer from Raiffeisen. Hannes Schmidt, you're an insider in that banking system, and I'm so happy that you revealed our strategy for the Pöstlingberg people. Martin Zauder is somewhere around us. Of course, Rinnenberger, colleagues from Oberbank. Alexander Frech is joining. He is also in his car. I hope he's not late. He was the guy who was trying to set up the bank for the Babak BSK equivalent. He now changed jobs. Dagmar Leitgeb, Thomas Heidenhofer. I didn't know you yet, but I hope I get to know you, so I have no story. Franz Amesberger, of course. We started in Vodafone decades ago to shake up Vodafone. we haven't been very successful, but it was great fun. Yeah? Patrick Pehler, you're a really smart person. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, and I hope people took the advantage to really have an in-depth experience with Patrick. He's an expert in banking details. Andreas, thank you very much for joining us again. I hope you're also lecturing in Munich when we repeat. Adrian, I don't know where you're sitting. Thanks for coming from the IBM side. Andre, Solarterm company, and we have Nedrai, did I spell it right? Joining us from Energy Infrastructure and Resources. Hannes Himmelreich just joined us from the Emirates back in Austria. Welcome home. Of course, Barbara and Katja, they are mindfulness experts and very important on the last sequence of Dean Radin's talk about what's the role of consciousness in organizations and reality. Wolfgang Pfahl, thanks for coming. Is it done? My list is done, I hope. If I did not mention you, forgive me, apologies. Of course, the IPM group, thanks Marian for coming and joining. It's not directly your perspective, but for all your portfolio companies' investments, what we are talking here is critical whether they make it or not into a value company, not just venture and value. From 1492 side, of course, it's clear. This is us at the VU, close to here. It's on a mirror so that we look more impressive. Yeah? And more people. We are a very small company. We're 24 in total, but the mirror makes it really, hopefully, a little pimped. You see Maximilian, Katja, myself, David, Hadi, Schmalzel, Eva, Aaron, Matthias, and Max, and more people which helped to make the summit a success. I'm really looking forward to 4 great sessions and to create value for you, which you can translate in company value. There's no housekeeping. So we're kind of a collective intelligent group. I think you will find the toilets and the food, and when we start again, we had done a total conference with 1,500 people without leadership, and it worked. I'm sure in that group it also works. So there's no housekeeping. We have a living agenda. As it is a living system, you have seen some of the swarm behavior already when we started. Some birds were early and some birds were on time, but that's about it. If you need help, ask colleagues. Usually they have more insights, or us, we know where the coffee is. So, thank you very much. I'll jump right now into the content. 1492 has done all his projects with a kind of integral philosophy or holistic philosophy. If we only tune the marketing side of a company, then they cannot produce it. They sell a lot, but it's not done. If we only help the portfolio people to make the next right products, maybe they cannot be financed. If we look just cost-cutting the finance, Maximilian said to one of your colleagues from Leitungsausschuss, how can I cut cost? Max said, close down the company. You have no cost. Then he needed 1-2 minutes to think it over and replied, no, let's create more EBITDA, which is a different thing. But this is kind of the idea of holistic, to have this kind of squares and circles together into a cylindric form which creates more value. Actually, if you listen to us, you shouldn't agree up front. Maybe you are in the blue perspective looking to what we say in a red shape, and then you say, well, it's nothing familiar for me. All round stuff, no corners. How weird is that? If you breathe and perform some little endurance in your mind, you could consider the other perspective as creating value together. It's not kind of one side, it's actually a nice symbol of co-creation and being holistic. All those functions of an organization and its stakeholders together create something which is beneficial for the customer. However you organize yourself. And the cylindric form is kind of a blueprint. In language, we say, yeah, don't kill it first and say, yes, but in our company, it doesn't work like that. Give it a chance with one breath, saying, what if? And then you have, of course, more respect, more tolerance, and more dialogue, which is usually a great benefit to consider the other person's opinion. And all that, of course, is in this map, and this is the agenda for today. We have an external world, and we have an internal world. We can discuss the topics on individual level or on collective level. And I think we should not separate it in a kind of reductionism way that we think if marketing doesn't exist, the whole company fails. We need to see it holistically. All together, not at the same time, but basically we all contribute in an organism way to that. And so creating business value is an objective. Having the right leadership in place is an objective. You cannot ignore it. Yes or no? Konrad, yeah? If you don't have the right leadership, if there's no performance culture, people just creating effort. And then they say, well, I did my best. Yeah? We had the discussion on the chat. Yes, is your best the best for the customer? And how big is the tension? In sports, if you be in Olympics or in Kitzbühel, and you have, I'm so exhausted, I gave my best, but you're on place 23. Nobody even would talk to you in the finish area. The question is, what's the best? And so in that tension to see where are we, how can we live? And of course, that all wouldn't be valuable if we would not have a significant impact in the market for the benefit of some customers. If they don't like it, we're just kind of a supportive group. Selbsthilfegruppe. Angstfreies Töpfern oder schöner Wohnen is the German equivalent. And so we are holistic. We are as ambitious to drive business as we are ambitious to drive our personal growth and development. And so the agenda, what we want to support you through is we really start with culture and to understand how to shake up culture, because culture in the 80s and 90s was kind of the appendix of the organization. Some in the HR department should take care of culture. Some companies still in the same mode, and we see in the next decade how that works. But we think it's great to start with culture. What are the common rules and common paradigms and understandings underneath? So what is the world view from you? Do you think the pie is fixed? And then you need to be competitive, or is the pie growing? Then you can be collaborative, but your assumption are driving your behavior. And we'll go there and give you also case studies where we successfully could shake up the culture in such a brief period of time that I was upset that the pricing was wrong. So we've had a very small budget and a huge effect in some areas because we somehow figured out a new way to do it with support, of course, of others. What we have in session 2 is algorithmic decision making. And we'll have great stories even from investment bankers who are very successful, that they don't make decisions based on their gut feelings, on their past experience, or on their expertise, because experts are good as long as the rules stay the same. Axel Swindell trained 20, 30 years to become such an expert in Kitzbühel, but he cannot do it on a snowboard with the same performance. So he's very depending on those rules. So how can we have algorithmic decision making to get rid of the politics in organization and personal moods of somebody to really what's the single point of fact and what's the process to really do that. And last but not least, of course, we would love to go into the topic of leadership. What kind of leaders does that require in the future? Is this the people who can understand what to do, distribute the work, make sure that it's done, or is there more behind the leadership? And Dean Radin will share mind-blowing stuff, how the consciousness interferes in matter. So it makes a difference who is in the leadership position. I cannot even ask you whether you agree or not, because you have no choice. Of course, you could leave, but I really encourage you. It's exciting. You will have enough breaks so that there's a lot of discussion possible and dialogue. But we would run our show through, And the Q&As and the depth discussions and the deep dives would be planned for tomorrow morning. Will be available. All the team, including TCI and Franz and Patrick, for everybody who has kind of questions. It's also good to sleep one night over the topics, because some of the topics contradict your own thinking. Like the Earth is a disk, it's flat, or the Earth is a ball. If you are in 1492 Naschmarkt and you say, you know, guys, for those people selling vegetables and food, the Earth is round. They would say, well, it's not relevant. Do you want to buy something? And some of these ideas would have the same effect in your mind. You would say, well, it's not relevant. Whether the Earth is round or a disk, I don't give a damn. Yeah? But if you want to see where the value could be, then join us tomorrow. Make sense? Before we start with the pressure fueling, Druckbetankung.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for the Druckbetankung. I'm doing that without a microphone. I invite you to a little exercise before we continue. And because there's so much stuff, and I would love to give you the chance to arrive fully in this room, especially for the ones who are coming from far away. So the invitation is to give yourself a break, and I invite you to do the 3 times breathing, and therefore I invite you to just find yourself in a good position on your chair, and give yourself the opportunity to give your attention to the breath, and then the attention to the body, and third, the attention to what is important next. So I invite you to close your eyes or let them slightly open, and maybe look to the floor in front of you. And just take one deep breath, breathing in and breathing out. With the second breath, you just give your attention to relax your body. Third breath, just give your attention to what is important next. If you're ready, you just open your eyes again and arrive fully in this room. Thank you very much. We will do these exercises during the day quite often, because then it's easier to digest.
It's part of the mindfulness. Clear mind, better decision, more free cash flow. That's my version of it. This was the business case behind it. Thanks a lot. If other people would talk about 1492, they would first of all say, well, okay, they do something with culture. A decade ago, it was kind of esoteric. If I spoke to a CEO, and even sometimes today, about culture, I say, well, culture, what should we... Yeah. And the interesting thing that now, through more competitiveness in the market, the topic gets more and more highlighted, and more people understand if they don't have the right culture, they don't execute the strategy in time, in budget, and in the other way. Because it's not just the PowerPoint karaoke, it really is the mindset and attitude the right one, and are the ways of working in place which collaboration or innovation need in order to be there. Fear is a good topic. So if there's a lot of fear in the organization, why should one be daring to be innovative? This is contradicting. And that on large scale, like on the side of the car manufacturers in Stuttgart, only two, 300, almost 300,000 employees, they still work like the Catholic Church, hierarchical, fear-based, so they are daring to do mistakes, therefore innovation suffers. And that's a cultural issue on the one hand side, and Max will share in the afternoon on the data-driven business model. It's the next topic is identity. So what do we think we are? Are we software or are we hardware producers? Are we, like us, are we selling days or are we contributing to the EBITDA of our organizations? It's a different identity, a different role you're playing. And some people feel familiar with it and some people or have ease. I think it's not easy because it's your center of gravity. Culture means, of course, you can travel to other cultures, to Thailand or to Finland, and experience other cultures, but it's not really your home base where you are when it's the daily routines kick in. In a crisis, we can all behave. That's not a big deal. Everybody from our clients say, wow, in a crisis, we're really good. Okay, everybody is. So what's unique about it? The daily routines are the things which either kill you or bring you into a good shape. And that's due to the culture and the basic understanding. And we made personally a big leap forward to collaborate with Rupert Sheldrake. He's actually a biologist dedicating his life to understand why living systems, in particular plants, why do they grow in the shape they do? And where do they take the information? Like a tree. Why does a fir tree look like a fir tree and not like an apple tree? Where's the information coming to do that? Okay, you can be a materialist and say, well, it's in the genes. But that doesn't explain everything. So he did great experiment, and he calls it morphogenetic fields. And I will introduce that concept to you because I think it's a very good way to approach culture and to understand why it needs to be managed in a different way. Whoever did an MBA in St. Gallen, you are familiar with that picture. Strategy, structure, and culture should be in a kind of balance. And of course, the idea was strategy, the structure follows strategy and culture will follow somehow. And it's not wrong. So the classical idea that there is kind of a sequence behind is not strong, but it's far too slow at the moment. It was right in the 80s and 90s. It's not working in the fast-growing business and in competitive environment. And we think, and this was also where we started with your bosses and say, no, we should start in parallel immediately with the culture and the leaders, because otherwise it wouldn't work. We're too slow because it takes so long to find a new approach, and we need to start with different symbols where people build up trust and believe that now it's something really changing, because you would not do something different if, like the Swebians say, when die nächste Sau durchs Dorf getrieben wird, when the next thing comes and you know it's a fashion, you just dive away and let it go. You wouldn't take it seriously. And this is a good thing to do, but sometimes it's really important to make a real fundamental change, and I think with culture it's good. The problem is, it's like perfume. We smell it only in the beginning. If I work for Erste Group, I think after 6 weeks I'm assimilated, and then I think this is how it is done here. And that's a really good sign for culture. This is how we do it here. That's how people respond if they address something which is culture. They don't know themselves, but this is kind of a heritage. And whether it's really good, we don't know. But it's only smellable in the beginning. This is why externals sometimes see stuff you don't if you're internal. Same counts for 1492. We don't see ourselves. The worst case I ever experienced was in Albania in 1997. I was sent there to help the minister to build up rules for tourism. And then we made a workshop and say, what's typical Albanian culture? And they say pizza. And then they said gyros, and they said something like Greek coffee. And I said, what music? And I said, well, that's Macedonian. And this is actually Slovenian. So they had nothing to say about themselves. After 50 years, dictator Enver Hoxha, they knew everything about everybody else, but not about themselves. So we have a blind spot in culture, which is really the ridiculous part to work with. Raiffeisen, same stuff. So this is how we do it here. How long did it take to change your position? Ages, which is not really logic, it's psychological, it's rather collective psychological, it's culture. And the Rupert Sheldrake concept actually reveals how we should manage it. And I translated his huge life work of research, and there are great books to read about morphic resonance and all the findings behind, but the easy way to understand it is the track in the butter. Who has kids? You may have seen them playing with their finger in the butter in the morning or breakfast table. And imagine you take your finger and you make kind of a trace in the butter. And you repeat it absolutely perfectly again and again and again. What happens? You write an S into the butter. What happens after 10 times? Some is left on your finger, and the trace gets deeper and deeper. And this is a magic moment, and how to explain actually the butter. Some ways and tries in the beginning, you doing it, yeah? And all of a sudden this trace and this creotes, as we call it, can be so deep that all of a sudden the trace determines your behavior. And this is where it changes or flips into culture. It can be, so the trace it can be seen in nature all over the place. This is where Rupert's main research is going on, to say what's the form giving in nature. How does a plant grow and how does rivers grow? In the beginning, there are no traces, so endless possibilities, innovation like hell. You're not having any constrictions, so you can do everything. After a while, where the river, the water, repeats its behavior, you see traces, and crevasses and river banks, and all of a sudden, after some thousands or millions of years, those riverbanks can become really impressive. How likely is it that the Colorado River in that image is changing suddenly his behavior? We should go into digitalization, let's change. And then you're in this kind of Colorado River where you are not creating the stuff. The riverbank determines where you are and where you have to behave. And all of a sudden you are kind of in a cultural prison, which is really difficult to overcome. And the dynamics behind this is a matter of time and repetition. Actually, I draw it on a flip chart. And then it's hopefully more entertaining. Wolfgang, you're working for Austrian Post. When did it start? 500 years ago? So this is times of repetition on that X. And this is the width of the behavior. So order and control for 500 years. So you do follow the instructions of your boss, not just once. You follow it twice a day, 3 times a day, but not just a week. You do follow it your lifetime, and you follow it generations after generations. And Dienstanweisung, and the grandfather. So in the beginning, somebody needed to instruct you, this is the right behavior. You do what your boss is telling you. So it took you a while to understand how to follow instructions, and this is where you actively were driving behavior. And all of a sudden, you reached a threshold. You could do it automatically. Nobody needed to instruct you anymore, and then you still could perform the same behavior. And all of a sudden, it was so deep that it caused a second threshold. Even when somebody said, well, this is a wrong behavior, do something else, you couldn't change. And this is very interesting also from drug research and criminal statistics, that some people have, and after 400 years, almost 500 years of Dienstanweisungen, this is deeply ingrained in a Grand Canyon, even though you have rationally the capacity to understand alternative behavior would be better, you're competing with 5-minute instructions against 500 years. So this is, for some companies who are that old and senior, it's 500 years competition against 5 minutes. Because what you try to do, of course, is to overcome the threshold of, which is a sweet spot, that you have enough routine but enough flexibility to change your behavior if needed. You adapt. And down here, you could change culture here by saying, introducing new rules, speed limits, policies, travel policies, how decision making works, how the governance works, and people can adapt in a reasonable time. But down here, you meet the threshold of decadency. So decadency means that you even understand why this is a bad behavior, and you cannot follow. You're in the Grand Canyon, and you just suffer because that's easier, because it reduces complexity, and you just have to focus on pain. That's it. So it's easier than to keep the tension. And this is what a lot of companies are in, even after 50 years of, if I may mention, Agrana. We have some cultural patterns which are hard to overcome. And the task of leader or change management is really creating new fields. And of course, new fields, the problem is that with a little pressure, or if some management is changing, you relapse back into the old patterns of behavior. Whether you stop smoking, on a personal level, you try to alter your behavior, more sport, better food, and. It's good. You understand it clearly. You're a rational person with Vernunft begabt, and it doesn't help because you're in competition of the past. And Rupert Sheldrake has had great experiments how to shake up those fields. So if you want to change whatever company, and we know it in the current project on Böstlingberg, this is a tough job to establish this kind of new behavior and give enough routines and hope, because even though you understand it, in every crisis you have the risk of relapsing. And this is a kind of fractal, it's universal. I have the same in skiing. I'm a trained skier. I was in Skigymnasium. I was doing 10 years only skiing. So I can really pretend to ski with both skis as long as I'm fit. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm sober. The conditions are super, clear sun, and a nice prepared piste, and then I can do it. If it's foggy, I have a backpack, I'm tired, I do the old technique from the 70s. And I'm not competitive, because this new stuff is so difficult to learn. And this is major mistake number one, to put culture in kind of the dimension of a normal project, to say, okay, we overcome the routines, processes, and habits. This is changing the center of gravity, and in sports only one person Eberharter could win with two different sets of skis, with the old skis of the 80s and with the new one. It's an exception. But he had a valley of tears for 10, 15 years between Saalbach and Kitzbühel. He had really to reinvent himself on technical level and on physical level. And many organizations have to reinvent them totally, because the new field is really a challenge. And it requires much more than only instructing people, say, now we change something. It's really a hot topic to get out of Grand Canyon. Rupert Sheldrake's research is groundbreaking. And the dimension is not just mechanical. I'm sharing that photograph because it's a personal experience. You see on the left a person, do you remember? It's Lauri Wesserleinen. It's a friend of mine, so I have permission to quote him, or to at least mention the workshop. In February 2007, We did a workshop. He was head of production of Nokia, and the idea was to split value and volume factories. And then the group, and this management meeting said, well, it's a cool idea. Let's watch Steve Jobs because they are launching a new iPhone. We're a mobile phone production company. We're the kings of the world. Let's look at some newcomers from Silicon Valley. And I had not had the idea, I have to confess. It was the idea of the group. And Lauri Wesselainen, okay, let's interrupt, let's look. And then this famous speech from Steve Jobs, it's not a music player, it's not just a phone, it's the combination of all of it. And then I asked the group strategically, hey guys, you are the head of production of Nokia. You have, how many people? 60,000 people working on that. What do you think strategically? Is it a threat? Is it the game changer? What is it? I said, no. It's all crap. We tested it. It's nothing. So I said, well, okay, let's proceed with the workshop. So, which we did. So we continued, and what is a Finnish custom, which I really like, is that after workshops, you have to get into the sauna with the management team. And this is very unusual to us because it's not just sauna, it's sauna where you do not take a shower, you take a box of beer and you drink to cool down a little bit. So imagine what happened after the management team of Lauri Wesselainen at 8 o'clock in the night. I've been in the sauna with Michael, naked of course, and after 3-4 beers. All of a sudden the discussion changed from this is crap. The first guy from quality said, hey guys, do you know what? If they really can do software updates over the air, because they're selling it with an internet connection, that would be a game changer. We cannot do that. And I said, wow, this is really strategically important. There was a little lisper in the face, but in the language already. And then the other one said, well, and you know what? They don't have keys, so they have less hardware defects, so the field failure rate, the quality will be much better. And so they said, maybe a customer like those displays, yeah, and so on. And then they had the fourth beer, and discussion went over. And the next day, I was in the same faith with these guys from alcohol level. But the last thing I remembered before I had a blackout was, I need to continue tomorrow morning with that strategic level of abstraction to think strategically how to tackle the iPhone, which I then did. And said, Kati was also there it was a Kisacalio? No, somewhere in Tampere, Grube-Luise. Grube-Luise? That's why in Finland. And then I said, hey guys, we had such a great discussion yesterday in the sauna. We need to continue to strategically drive forward what we do. Because these were the guys who made the decision. There's nobody else there. There's nobody coming to take their job. And then I was really baffled because they totally ignored it and said, no, that's crap. I said, but yesterday in the sauna, you were really strategically thinking about software updates over the air, no keys, this and that. And I said, no, it's irrelevant. Let's continue with the diameter of the charger and how we split volume and value. And for me, it was a clear revelation. That kind of culture works like a magnet. If you're with 3 beers getting this layer off, you think like a normal person. If you come into your company, whoop, that layer goes back and you're back in this kind of vortex of your culture, and people can't help. They were really smart guys, but they couldn't overcome that kind of Grand Canyon situation. So please remember the sauna effect. And what we did is we said, okay, this is the foundation, and we need to somehow kill that kind of vortex into the old and make it new. And Mr. Kruse, we had a project together with Bayer Leverkusen, and he was really revealing actually the clue how we can do that sustainably every time, repeatedly in every organization, depending no matter of the size or age of a company. Even after 400 years, I think we are capable of transforming. This is our skill as a species. Why shouldn't we? And he gave us the clue. So we have a short video from him to understand it more from system dynamics than from mechanical project management perspective.
Ja, jetzt sind wir beim interessanten Teil, vor dem wir alle stehen. Sagen wir mal, wenn ich hingehe und mit einem Unternehmer, mit einem unternehmerischen Geist, mir eine Werteassoziation in der Gesellschaft aussuche und darauf einschwinge. Wenn ich zum Beispiel die Verbindung zwischen Sporthype und Mode einmal erkannt habe, dann kann ich durch das Erzeugen von Sporthypes Mode verkaufen. Dann springe ich auf einen Zug, der bereits fährt. Das ist ein Teil, der uns immer weniger passieren wird. Wir stehen vor einem globalen System, riesengroß, das wir nur noch ganz schwer verstehen und analysieren können. Und wir stehen häufig auch vor Firmen, die ja zigtausend Mitarbeiter haben. Wir erreichen ja inzwischen Größenordnungen in der Firma, wo man sagt, pass auf, das sind 20, 30, 40, 50.000 Mitarbeiter. Und dann kann man sich fragen, wie kann ich denn in einem solchen System jetzt nicht nur auf ein bestehendes Muster springen, sondern eins erzeugen? Da werde ich ja ganz klein im Verhältnis zu dieser Größe. Wie kann ich Deutschland bewegen? Wie kann ich die Welt bewegen? Wenn ich dann sage, naja, guck mal, ich bin schon froh, wenn ich meine Frau bewege. Aber wie ist das mit der Welt? Dann kann ich sagen, das ist ja hilflos jetzt. Ne? Jetzt bin ich ja nicht größenwahnsinnig. Ich bin ja nicht der Meinung, an meinem Wesen muss die Welt genesen. Also bin ich irgendwie nicht der Meinung, dass ich das kann. Da sage ich halt, stopp. Das stimmt nicht. Wir haben hier dynamische Systeme vor uns. Und dynamische Systeme haben die Tendenz zur Selbstaufschaukelung. Dynamische Systeme kennen Resonanzpunkte. Wenn ich also etwas bewegen will, muss ich mich nur fragen, was sind die resonanzfähigen Punkte in diesem System? Und wenn ich dann in der Lage bin, diese Resonanzen in die Aufschaukelung zu bringen, bekomme ich einen Lawineneffekt. Und dieser Lawineneffekt ist real. Er wird manchmal inzwischen für völligen Unfug benutzt. Kennen Sie dieses kleine Klingelzeichen, dieses Crazy Frog? Dieses aberwitzige Ding, da ist jemand, der ins Internet einfach reingestellt hat, wie er mit seiner Stimme ein Motorrad nachmacht. Wenn man das Ding zweimal gehört hat, fängt es an so nervig zu werden, dass man langsam sagt, kannst du das Ding mal wegtun, das geht einem auf den Senkel. Das ist einer der am meisten runtergeladenen Klingeltöne in der ganzen Welt. Und dann kommt so ein durchgeknallter Deutscher auf die Idee und macht dahinter noch ein bisschen Technorhythmen, bringt das dann auf den Markt und erreicht Verkaufszahlen, die die Beatles in den ersten Jahren nicht erreicht haben. Da fragt man sich, sag mal, was ist hier eigentlich los? Ja, Selbstaufschaukelung. Wenn ein System in diese Art von Selbstaufschaukelung kommt, weil ein Punkt erwischt wird, der momentan resonanzfähig ist, dann kann ein Einzelner die Welt bewegen. Kennen Sie das Beispiel, was zurzeit gerade läuft mit dieser Millionen-Dollar-Website? Absolut verrücktes Ding. Da kommt einer auf die Idee, kleine Pixel auf seiner Seite zu verkaufen. Sagt, ihr habt sie doch nicht alle. Aber die Leute reden darüber, weil sie das kurios finden. Pixel auf einer Website. 1 Million Pixel auf einer Website. Und dann schaukelt sich das System auf und plötzlich ist es real, dass für zig Zehntausende diese Pixel verkauft werden bei eBay. Fragt man sich, was ist da eigentlich los? Spinnen die alle? Nein, die spinnen nicht. Das System kommt in Resonanz und schaukelt sich auf. Und jetzt sind wir an einem Teil, wo ich glaube, dass sich die interne Kommunikation in Unternehmen eigentlich revolutionieren muss. Und auch die externe zum Markt. Ich glaube nicht, dass es nötig ist, in dynamischen Systemen noch zu meinen, dass der eingesetzte energetische Input bestimmt, was der energetische Output ist. Kleine Ursache, kleine Wirkung, große Ursache, große Wirkung. Ich glaube, dass wir in den nächsten Jahren mit Systemen zu tun haben, in denen kleine Ursache große Wirkung haben kann. Es ist möglich, wenn ich Resonanzpunkte treffe. Und ich glaube, es wird eine Menge an Intelligenz brauchen, um Punkt 1, die Resonanzpunkte zu kennen. Wenn Sie in einer Kultur etwas bewirken wollen, ich hatte es eben ein bisschen plakativ und so habe ich gesagt, Sie müssen wissen, was sexy ist. Wenn Sie wissen, was sexy ist in einer Kultur, dann können Sie mit einem relativ geringen Input eine Riesenwirkung erzeugen. Wir haben in einem Unternehmen, Handelsunternehmen, die Aufgabe gehabt, 55.000 Mitarbeiter in die Idee zu bringen, denkt doch mal darüber nach, dass ihr Teil dieses Unternehmens seid. Muss man dabei sagen, es ist ein Unternehmen, das mit mehr als 100 Einzelunternehmen in mehr als 19 Ländern unterwegs ist, also sehr diversifiziert. Jetzt können Sie natürlich an Roadshows denken. Sozusagen der Vorstand fliegt durch die Welt und erzählt allen Leuten, was die Idee dieser Gruppe ist. Dann können Sie sich ungefähr die Wirkung vorstellen und ungefähr den Invest, den Sie da haben. Das ist nicht ganz ohne. Jetzt sind wir angekommen und haben gesagt, nee, machen wir mal was anderes. Was sind die Werteassoziationen in diesem System? Da haben wir herausgefunden, die arbeiten mit Kreativität, die arbeiten mit Leidenschaftlichkeit, die arbeiten mit Nachhaltigkeit. Sind wir mit einer Idee gekommen, die alle erstmal kurios gefunden haben. Wir haben gesagt, machen wir doch mal so, wir fordern einfach die Menschen in diesem Unternehmen auf, sich einen Stein zu suchen, so wie man das als Kind macht, diesen Stein zu bemalen und diesen Stein dann der Gruppe zu stiften. Die Gruppe stiftet dafür Geld, wir sammeln das Geld zusammen und die besten Steine kriegen das Geld und können damit irgendwo in der Welt ein Kinderhilfsprojekt machen. War einfach eine simple Idee. Und dann haben alle gesagt, naja, das wird schon nichts Tolles werden. Da sind 33.600 Steine rausgekommen. Das ist eine Bewegung gewesen, die hat sich innerhalb von 3 Monaten um die ganze Welt bewegt und hat eine Rückmeldequote von 66% erreicht. Jetzt versuchen Sie mal mit irgendeiner Aktion 66% der Menschen zu erreichen. Und die haben sich ja wirklich aktiviert, die haben teilweise Stunden investiert in ihren Stein. Und das finde ich dann, wenn Sie so wollen, darf ich den Ausdruck verwenden, cool. Wenn man ein System in seine Resonanz bewegt und nicht klüger ist als das System, sondern einfach nur sagt, hey, vielleicht können wir ja was miteinander tun, was sich aufschaukelt. Und da bin ich inzwischen der Meinung, diese Prozesse laufen nicht zufällig ab, Sie können es nicht erzwingen. Aber wenn Sie die Resonanzen im System einigermaßen kennen, dann können Sie tatsächlich Wirkungen erreichen, die sind deutlich größer als das, was Sie investieren. Und diesen Teil finde ich im Moment für Management eine sehr spannende Überlegung, weil wir uns das andere nicht mehr leisten können. Die Systeme sind größer als unsere Budgets. Und wenn wir die Systeme nicht mitarbeiten lassen, dann arbeiten wir gegen die Systeme und dann wird es teuer. Und da kann ich eigentlich sagen, bei allen Veränderungsprozessen, die ich gemacht habe, halte ich 2 Werte maximal hoch. Das ist Transparenz und Involvierung. Wenn ich die Menschen in einem System verändern will, muss ich sie involvieren. Ich muss sie hineinziehen. Und ich brauche die Sicherheit, dass ich weiß, was in ihren Köpfen resonanzfähig ist. Früher ging das leicht. Bei einer kleinen Firma, was macht der gute Manager, was macht der gute Unternehmer? Er redet mit den Menschen. Er geht durch den Laden und redet, was er nur reden kann mit Menschen. Wenn Sie 200 Menschen haben, können Sie das noch schaffen. Wenn Sie 300 haben, können Sie es machen. Ich habe einen Unternehmer kennengelernt, der hat noch bis 900 Mitarbeiter das geschafft, mit den Menschen zu reden. Und zwar so, dass er durch den Laden ging und dann den Einzelnen ansprach und sagte, na Müller, wie steht's mit Ihren Aktien? Und Müller hat sich totgefreut, weil er noch wusste, dass Herr Müller gerade neue Aktien gekauft hat. Das sind die seltenen Ausnahmen von guten Kommunikatoren. Aber versuchen Sie mal bei 20.000 Menschen so einen Stil durchzuführen. Das wird einfach nicht mehr gehen. Also brauchen wir Möglichkeiten, Methoden, um aus möglichst vielen Köpfen zu verstehen. Das heißt, wir sind im Moment dabei, es nicht mehr über die Einzelperformance von Kommunikatoren zu schaffen. Wir brauchen Formen der Erzeugung von Transparenz. Und wenn ich diese beiden Dinge schaffe, die Transparenz der Wertemuster und die Involvierung der Menschen, dann habe ich eigentlich alle Chancen zur Selbstaufschaukelung. Dann kann ich riesige Dynamiken entstehen lassen und bin deutlich wirkungsvoller, als ich mir als Einzelner jemals träumen ließ.
So what is sexy, what's the sexiness in there? And this is, I think, the clue, the transparency and the openness. And Kruse was, for me, definitely a mentor 10 years ago. You know, these examples are kind of old. Meanwhile, we found out a technology to repeat what actually he was suggesting, how to shake up organizations. It took us some months to negotiate the transparency in every company, because this is kind of a area where people would love to have a secret chamber of as experts and then do it and then communicate the rest and not interfere. And just the real-time voting and say, well, we vote transparency and all employees can participate and contribute is a hot topic for the old world. And it is not working fear-based. So if you threat the people and say, we can, if we don't do it, we suffer severe job losses or our competitive advantage goes back. Or one example from an aircraft manufacturer in Hamburg about they have a site there, assembly line, and say, well, you're not competitive, we push everything to China. And then moving with this fear-based communication there is not working. Everybody's kind of defensive. The question is, what's sexy for a Hamburg site to be competitive, to be a contributor to the bigger element? And this is what we found out technology-wise possible to identify those points where you have switches, you can switch up that point and it works. And for doing that, I'd like to introduce my colleague David Rohrmann, because he's really doing that since kind of
11 years.
11 years. Coming from technology to, and we have great surprising experience. I need to confess, the effects were really surprising for us. We didn't expect it. And even on an ecosystem like energy in Europe, we have to look for this kind of what's sexy and how can we shake it up. Otherwise, our investment would not be in proportion to the effects.